My boyfriend humiliated me publicly. Said, a girl like you should be grateful. So I showed up at his birthday. Let his boss hear the truth. My partner called me unattractive in front of his friends, then ditched me at a restaurant, leaving me to pay for the meal. As he walked away, he exclaimed loudly, a girl like you should be grateful I even dated you. I smiled and waited patiently. This morning, my phone exploded with 13 missed calls. I am still processing what happened last weekend. Like, I keep revisiting it in my thoughts, wondering whether I dreamt the entire thing, but nah, my maxed out credit card and ice cream smears on my couch confirmed that it was true. For reference, I'd been dating Harvey for 2 years. 2 years, not just a casual fling or whatever. We had the whole routine down. Netflix marathons on Sundays, awkward holiday meals with both families, and even that bizarre couple's yoga class he insisted on doing, which we both awful at, to be honest. Things weren't ideal with us. Are they ever? Yet, I assumed we were solid. We had discussed moving in together this summer. He had these small, bothersome habits like leaving his socks everywhere, texting while watching movies, and making helpful comments about my appearance. Things like, that shirt makes your arms look bigger. Or, have you thought about trying a different hairstyle? I always dismissed it as him being honest. Past me was a complete. So, last Friday, Harvey texted me about a meal with some business pals. He had never really included me in his job life before, always claiming it was unprofessional or whatnot. So, I was actually excited. I even went shopping for new clothing, which broke my budget, and spent hours getting ready. I'm talking about an entire YouTube makeup instruction, a luxury straightener that I only use on special occasions, and the works. I get to this super expensive downtown restaurant with tiny portions and no prices on the menu. Red flag number one. Harvey has already arrived, accompanied by two coworkers, Leonard and Pablo. There's a strange vibe that greets me as I approach. Harvey barely notices me with a half stand from his chair and a short, "You're late." I was really 2 minutes late since parking was impossible. I sit down and he looks at my clothes and says, "Oh, you wore that?" Not softly. His friends exchanged glances and I could feel my cheeks becoming hot. For the record, I was wearing a dark blue dress that I thought looked nice. Nothing outrageous or indecent. I attempt to joke it off like, is there a dress code I missed? But he shrugs and says, they've already ordered appetizers. Cool. Harvey spends the next hour chatting about work topics that I don't comprehend while his friends nod along. When I try to join the conversation, Harvey either speaks over me or explains why I'm wrong about what I just stated. At one point, I started something about a customer at my store, and Harvey interrupts with, she doesn't really get how things work in the real business world, and waves dismissively as if retail isn't a real career. I have been a manager for 3 years. I'm sitting there becoming increasingly uncomfortable, wondering if Harvey has always been this condescending and I've simply never noticed, or if he's just showing off for his pals. Either way, it's not a good appearance. When Leonard asks how we met, I begin telling him about how his coworker Vanessa is my best friend and introduce us. Harvey interrupts me mid-sentence and says, yeah, Vanessa felt bad for her. I was doing a favor, really. He then laughs. You guys. My stomach literally sank. That is not even close to how things happened. Vanessa had warned me about Harvey's ego before we met, but she assured me that he was a wonderful guy underneath. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. I excuse myself to the bathroom, partly to avoid crying in front of them. I'm in the stall texting Vanessa like, WTF is going on? When I receive a message that Harvey just tagged himself at this restaurant on Instagram with boys' night out as if I'm not even there. Vanessa calls me right away, but I send her to voicemail because I don't want the boys to hear me cry. I spray some water on my face, touch up my makeup, and give myself a sad little pep talk in the mirror about getting through dinner with dignity. When I return to the table, everyone is laughing over something, but it immediately stops when I sit down. Awesome. The server brings our main meals, and Harvey starts making comments about my food selection. I ordered spaghetti, one of the less expensive options, because I was already concerned about the bill. And he started saying things like carb loading for a marathon, and that's a bold choice for someone with your body type. Each comment feels like a small paper cut, and they build up quickly. At this point, I'm hardly eating, just moving food around my plate and counting down the minutes till I can leave. Then Pablo asks Harvey about a presentation, and Harvey goes on to tell him how his employer loved his ideas and that he is now in charge of the entire project. Something clicks in my head. Harvey had been worried over this identical presentation the week before, claiming his segment was just 5 minutes long and he was nervous. Is he suddenly a star? It's as if he lives in an alternate reality where he is the primary character. Then the bill arrives. The waiter places it on the table and Harvey takes it, looks at it for a moment, and then slides it across to me. I believe he is simply showing me the sum, but then he says, "And I will never forget this." You know what? I don't think this is working. I stare at him, waiting for the punchline. There isn't one. I've been trying to make this work, but I'm no longer attracted to you. I believe we should split up. In the middle of a restaurant in front of his buddies after 2 years together. Who does this? I'm taken entirely by surprise. Are you serious now? Is this how you want to do it? He stands up, grabs his jacket, and says, I still get a knot in my stomach thinking about it. A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long. You're not exactly a prize. And then he and his companions leave. They all walked out laughing, leaving me with a $347 bill for their ridiculous Wagyu appetizers and fine cocktails. The waiter approached with an expression of sadness that made everything 1,000 times worse. I paid the bill with my credit card, which I'm still paying off from Christmas. Great. And managed to get to my car without completely falling apart. I called Vanessa from the parking lot, crying so hard that she couldn't understand me at first. She arrived at my apartment with a pint of Ben & Jerry's and a bottle of wine. The actual MVP. In between ugly crying and stress-eating cookie dough, I told her everything. She was furious. I had to talk her out of driving to Harvey's house and throwing a disturbance. That's when she went odd. She kept asking questions regarding Harvey's comments about work, the project he mentioned, and his position in the organization. Finally, she said, Sabrina, I don't know how to tell you this, but Harvey isn't who he says he is at work. Harvey isn't a hotshot marketing guy going to get promoted. He works as an assistant, making coffee runs and scheduling meetings, all the business trips, complete fabrications. What about the major presentation? He was only preparing the slides for the actual team. What is the fancy title on his LinkedIn? Complete fiction. I felt like an idiot for 2 years. This person had been lying about almost everything, and I had never questioned it. What else had he lied about? That night when Vanessa had left, I went into full investigative mode. I went back through our text history, images, and everything. There were so many contradictions that I had missed. Comments regarding money that did not add up. He had to work late several times, although his location indicated that he was across town. I could not sleep. I kept thinking about that moment at the restaurant. How little he made me feel, how humiliated I was. At around 3 a.m., I received a text message from an unknown number. Hey, it's Cody from Harvey's office. Vanessa gave me your number. There's some stuff you should know. That's when things became really intriguing. First, thank you everyone so much for your encouraging comments on my previous post. I literally cried when reading several of them, but in a good manner. Many of you requested an update. So, here's what happened next in this totally insane incident. After learning from Cody, who works with Harvey, that my partner of 2 years had been living in his own fantasy world, I spent the following 4 days in a disgusting post-breakup fog. You know, the one you alternate between bawling into a pint of ice cream and furiously scrolling through old images, wondering if any of it was true. My flat looked like a catastrophe zone with dishes stacked up, laundry everywhere, and about 7 empty DoorDash bags because cooking seemed impossible. The worst part was that I kept having these times where I'd think of something humorous to text Harvey, only to recall what happened, and it felt like I was dumped all over again. My mind was trapped in a loop of, did that actually happen? and how did I not see this coming? I'd also avoided social media since I knew Harvey's post would be irritating. But on Wednesday morning, I surrendered and checked Instagram. Sure enough, Harvey was there with a workout selfie marked, "Level up. Know your worth." The arrogance. I almost flung my phone across the room. Vanessa came over that evening with takeout and discovered me wrapped in my comforter like a melancholy burrito. She's been fantastic throughout this whole affair, making sure I eat real food, listening to me whine about the same things over and over and never saying, "I told you so." Despite having her doubts about Harvey from the start. While we were dining, Vanessa showed me her text with Cody. Apparently, they had been talking a lot and he had tea to spill. According to Cody, Harvey had been telling everyone at work that he dumped me because I was needy and always discussed marriage. What? I did not create the Pinterest board future home ideas. Yes, Harvey did have one of these, which he claimed was research for a work project. Then Cody disclosed the big bombshell. Harvey wasn't simply lying about his job title. He was on probation for taking credit for other people's efforts and might be dismissed shortly. All those late evenings at work, he was hurriedly trying to correct errors before anyone noticed. Business trips. This is complete fiction. I was still processing everything when my phone rang. It was Xavia, Harvey's mother. I almost didn't respond awkwardly, but I decided to be mature about it. Xavier has always been quite lovely to me, as in she remembers my birthday and asks me questions about my life. She sounded anxious and inquired whether everything was fine between me and Harvey. Apparently, he informed his family that we had a little fight, but everything was great. A small fight. The man publicly humiliated me, deserted me in front of his buddies, and left me with a large debt. I tried to be vague, claiming we were taking up space because I didn't want to put her in the middle. Then she discussed Harvey's birthday dinner on Saturday and how the entire family was excited to see me there. Guys, I almost choked on my lane. Harvey had informed his family that we were still together and that I was coming to his birthday dinner. The meal was at his parents' house, and he supposedly informed them that we had big news to tell. After hanging up, I sat there stunned as Vanessa looked at me as if I had grown a second head. She was wondering, is he delusional or just a pathological liar? Honestly, I was wondering the same thing. That's when we devised the plan. I was not going to just ignore his family. They had always been kind to me, and they deserved to know who Harvey truly was. But I wasn't going to make a scene or be vengeful. I would simply attend the meal as invited and let the facts unfold spontaneously. Cody and I met for coffee the next day. We had just met through Harvey, so it was a little weird, but he turned out to be a really cool guy. He corroborated everything and provided additional information regarding Harvey's work falsehoods. Harvey claimed to be the leader of a team that included only himself and 2 interns. What about the major presentation he oversaw last month? He was only managing the slideshow while his boss spoke. Cody appeared genuinely concerned on my behalf, claiming that Harvey's stories about me had always felt odd. Apparently, Harvey would come to work claiming that I was high maintenance, when in truth, I was paying for most of our dates at the end, since Harvey claimed to be between paychecks, which I now realize probably meant he was awful with cash. Midway during our chat, Cody received a text from their boss asking if he could come in on Saturday evening to assist with an emergency project. Cody was disappointed because he had made arrangements, but then I had an idea. What if Cody needed to drop off something at Harvey's parents' house during the birthday dinner? The timing would be ideal. As we worked out the arrangements, my phone buzzed with Harvey's first text message since the restaurant incident. It simply stated, "We need to discuss what happened." I might have overreacted. Might have. I showed Cody and he almost spit out his coffee. Overreacting is when you are angry by someone being late, not when you publicly humiliate your girlfriend of 2 years and charge her $300. I did not respond. Allow him to sweat. The following 2 days were a whirlwind of preparation. I was not going to this meal unprepared. I sifted through past texts, discovering all the lies, dates when he claimed to be at work conferences that did not exist, claims about coworkers that Cody confirmed were false, and even images Harvey had posted of himself at work events that were simply taken off the corporate website. Vanessa came over on Friday night to assist me choose an outfit. I'm not going to lie, part of me wanted to go there looking fantastic simply to spite him. But we thought that the ideal way was to look attractive without appearing to try too hard. We opted on a simple black dress that Harvey once stated made me appear average, which I now realize was his strange negging attempt because I always got praises when I wore it. I barely slept Friday night. What if this backfires? What if his family supported him? What if I froze and couldn't go ahead with it? By Saturday, I'd eaten my nails down to nothing and mentally ran through around 17 possible scenarios. Harvey texted again about midday saying, "I look forward to seeing you tonight. Wear something nice. My parents are very excited." I did not respond to that either. Let him think what he wants. I spent the afternoon getting ready, feeling a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. Vanessa helped me with my hair and gave me a pep talk when I started to lose confidence. At 5:30, I got into my car and drove to his parents' house. I had to pull over once because my hands were too shaky to drive securely. I sat there for a minute practicing the breathing exercises from the meditation app I got months ago, but never used. What was I doing? Was this crazy? Maybe I should just block Harvey on everything and live my life normally. But then I remembered him sitting there at his birthday dinner, most likely telling everyone a fabricated version of our relationship, possibly even playing the victim, and my resolve stiffened. I arrived at his parents' house at 6:15 p.m., which was fashionably late and would bother Harvey. Several automobiles were already in the driveway. It looked like the entire family was there. I checked my cosmetics in the rearview mirror, took one final deep breath, and headed to the door. Harvey's father opened it with a bright smile and a hug leading me inside. The home smelled like Xavier's wonderful pot roast, and I felt a twinge of regret. I really liked Harvey's family, and this was probably the last time I saw them. I rounded the corner into the living area and saw Harvey, drink in hand, laughing at something his cousin had said. He froze when he saw me, evidently not expecting me to arrive despite what he had told his family. The expression on his face was, "To be honest, this is priceless." Panic raced across his features for a short second before he calmed down and approached with a phony smile. He hugged me tightly and murmured, "You actually came. We need to talk privately." I simply grinned and exclaimed loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I wouldn't miss your birthday for anything, especially since you told everyone we had big news to share." His face lost its color. Zavia clasped her hands happily and asked if this was what she expected. Harvey's sister sent me a knowing look. His father started joking about finally having grandchildren. Harvey grasped my elbow a little too tightly and tried to steer me down the corridor, but his mother announced that dinner was ready and everyone needed to sit down. As we took our seats around the dining table, Harvey carefully watching my every move. My phone buzzed with Cody's text message. "On my way. It's 15 minutes out." Harvey leaned in and shouted, "What are you doing here?" I thought about the restaurant. I just smiled pleasantly and added again loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh, I wouldn't miss the chance to tell your family about what happened at that restaurant, Harvey. I'm sure they'd love to hear that story." The expression of complete dread on his face as his mother began bringing out the meal was worth every second of anxiety it took to get there. The look of complete dread on his face when his mother began bringing out the meal. It was worth every second of anxiousness to get there. It's game on. Second update. I am finally ready to tell you what happened at Harvey's birthday dinner. Sorry for the delay. I needed a mental health day after all of this stress. Furthermore, my Wi-Fi has been acting up since a neighbor grabbed my password and presumably downloaded the entire internet. Where have we left off? Right. I was seated at Harvey's dinner table with his family, and he was worried about what I could say. So there I was, surrounded by Harvey's family, his parents, Xavier and Ralph, his sister Kayla, his grandmother, and two cousins whose names I constantly mix up. Xavier's wonderful pot roast, those buttery mashed potatoes I'd literally dreamed about, and a fancy salad that no one was going to eat but everyone would pretend to like. The first 20 minutes were just unpleasant. Harvey kept trying to manage the conversation while giving me warning glances. I simply smiled and passed the bread rolls, relishing how his left eye twitched whenever I opened my mouth. Petty, maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Zavia kept the conversation going. Bless her. She inquired about my family job and the usual small conversation. When she mentioned how proud everyone was of Harvey's major promotion, I almost choked on my water. I looked at Harvey, whose face had turned the same shade as the beets on the table. Harvey jumped in, discussing how his team was crushing their goals and how his boss was essentially grooming him for senior management. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.